everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Anderson. I am a freelance artist and teacher hoping to inspire creativity. If you would like more videos like these, please take a second to like and subscribe down below. It really helps in the algorithm of YouTube to help get my videos seen to more people. If you want to receive notifications of when I go live, please make sure to hit the bell and choose all notifications. If you have any questions during or after the class, make sure to pop a comment down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. I'll be leaving timestamps down below so you can skip ahead to the start of class, but I will be sharing announcements as well as supplies, so make sure to stick around for that. If interested in learning more about my classes, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And feel free to check me out on Patreon, where I teach exclusive classes to those who support me. In Patreon, I also give traceables for all of my live classes, including this one. Lastly, if you would like to share your work after class with me and others who painted along with us, please head over to Facebook, as I have an artist community where you can share your finished painting with us. I'll leave links for all of that in the description box below. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another live class. Today we are going to be doing a watercolor class. So get your paints, get your brushes, and I'm excited to get started. Now most of you know I do a watercolor class about once a month. Last month we didn't have one because I was out of town. Or I think it might have been my birthday and I was sick anyways, but regardless, I'm excited to get back into watercolor. I hope you are too. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Let me know in the comments down below where you're painting from. If you're painting with anyone, I love to chat with you guys during the class. We're gonna go over some supplies real quick, and then we'll get right into painting. This should be a fairly quick lesson. We're gonna go over a couple different things like color and shapes and sizes, because pumpkins are just that. They come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. So we're gonna play around a little bit with that before we get into like our main picture, but we'll go over that in a little bit, okay? I wanted to start off, just like I do with all of my classes, that I do have a traceable available for you if you are new and you just kind of don't really know, you feel like you don't really know what you're doing, or maybe blank canvases scare you. I know that that's definitely a thing. When I first started, I just didn't really know where to start. Traceables are a great way to just get something down onto your page without feeling the need to like come up with it with yourself. So these are available on my Patreon page. It's just the $5 tier, so you become a member for $5, and it's the beginning of the month. It is the first of the month, which is like literally the best time to become a patron. You'll not only get access to today's traceable, the rest of the month's traceables, as well as every other traceable that I've ever posted for the $5 tier. So you get a lot of content for just that $5, plus you get an ease of mind if you are in need of a traceable. So that is helpful if you're like me and just you don't like canvases being blank. That is for you guys. That's for my patrons, those who support me, and to be honest, everybody over on Patreon helps this page and help keep my free classes free, essentially. And there's other stuff in there if you're wanting to check it out. But yeah, I have that linked down below. I have it linked in the live chat, and it's also all over my Facebook and everything. So if you need access to that, hopefully you can grab it. I have my Stuart Semple color palette of watercolors. It doesn't need to be this palette. You can have whatever watercolor palette you want. The specific colors of this palette are really like odd named, shaped, so it's like canary or like some random thing that is red, so it doesn't really give like it's not like your burnt sienna or raw umber or anything like that. So I'm going to be saying probably the acrylic counterparts to what they actually, not counterparts, what they should kind of be closest to in terms of acrylics or like other colors But obviously, if I say brown, a brown that's close to that. But yeah, I have over here a 8.5 by 5.5, just multimedia sketchbook. I don't necessarily use watercolor paper. I know for some it is very helpful to use that, but as a beginner, at least when I was beginning, watercolor paper can be expensive, and sometimes if the only paper I had was watercolor paper, I wouldn't play. I wouldn't paint because I didn't want to ruin good paper. So if you're new and you're not familiar with watercolors, get yourself a sketchbook, get yourself something that you can just play and get more confident in your ability to put watercolor down on the page. And then once you get to a certain comfortableness, then you can start branching out and getting better paper. I will say that having better paper, having better colors will make all of your illustrations better and easier. But if that is stopping you from just painting, then get the cheap stuff. Get the cheap stuff, get confident, and then you can break out and buy more expensive stuff. That being said, I typically use these brushes. I got them off of Amazon. They've proven to be great. But recently I got some, I was given some free, like a gift from a brand. Now, I apologize if I'm not saying this correctly. They are a company from China. And I believe it's Fumui. It's like Fuumuui. And it comes in this really, really cute travel size watercolor, like it's like leather. And what they are is they come in like these tiny little sizes. So they come in 3 sizes, and then you just unwind this, unscrew it, and it becomes your own. How cool is that? How cool is that? So I actually used these already for this exact illustration at the beginning of last month, and I loved them. I thought it was really cool. I actually did these at my my son's soccer practice, and I filmed it and everything. So I will be doing a official. I'll be doing an official review of these, but I'm going to be using these for this class just because I want to use them again. But yeah, these are the ones that I will be using. I believe I linked them in the description. I might not have, but I will link them after the class if not. But these, I will probably be using these 2 sizes, the smaller 2. So this one's a 4 and an 8. Sizes of brushes are always weird because it's like, it changes with every brand. It's like women's pants. It's like you're a 4 over here and then you're an 8 over there, and it's whatever. So it's not like universal sizes. So just grab yourself a small and a medium, depending on the size of your paper and how large you want your pumpkins. Obviously, if you have bigger paper and you want a bigger pumpkin, then obviously using a bigger brush would be better. Okay, but these are the brushes that I will be using. And yeah, the kind of the chrome ones are in my those are in my Amazon shop if you're interested in those specific ones. But today I will be using the ones that I got gifted. Yeah, I think that's it. Obviously, I have some paper towel. I have some water. Oh, hello, everyone. I just realized that you guys were commenting. Myrtle Beach. Hello. Creve. I don't even know how to say that. I'm from Montana. Saskatchewan, Canada. I love people who come to Canada. I have so many people from Canada who tune in, so I appreciate all of you. But I have a lot of patrons. Actually, Jessica, you just became a patron, didn't you? Jessica Pape. If not, then there's like a Jessica Pope or something like that that just became a patron. But yeah, so I look forward to painting with you guys. Let's see. Yes, it is you. Hello, Jessica. Welcome to my Patreon. Hopefully you got your sketch already. If you did use the traceable, let me just give you a little bit of a little help with the traceable. When we are doing watercolors, if you do use a traceable, if you don't want to see the lines that you make with your pencil, make sure that they are so light that you can barely see them. Only you can see them. If I had a traceable out on my page, you probably wouldn't be able to see it on the camera just because of how light I would make it be. And that is so that when I go over it with my colors, I won't be able to see it. That's just a personal preference. Depending on what you're painting, you don't necessarily have to be that careful with it. But with something like this, typically we are. Now, we are going to be having fun with our pumpkins. So this is essentially what we are painting, but I also did a whole bunch of other ones in different sizes, different amounts, different shapes, colors, all sorts of different pumpkins. And we're gonna have fun just playing around with our pumpkins so that you can get more confident. If you don't want to do this and you just want to paint your main picture, that is totally fine, and you can still use the traceable if you want. But hopefully during this class, maybe you'll get so confident that you won't need it. That being said, you can still be in there, you can still support me, but hopefully I give you the tools to be able to not feel so afraid or just more confident in being able to put your brush to the page and just paint. All right, if anyone has any questions, yeah, let me know. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We have a palette that we have to create. So depending on what colors you want to use, we're gonna go ahead and create our colors. Now over here on the top of your screen, I have my palette. And actually, maybe I'll come over here for this section. All right, so here is the palette, and we're just gonna create colors right now. So I want to use a range of oranges and browns for this, and greens. And then if you want to use a blue for this, you also can do that, but that is up to you. Feel free to use whatever colors, but for this, I'm going to be getting out lots of oranges. So I'm gonna go here, grab some yellowish orange. And normally I would clean out my palette before I have class, except for the last time I used this palette was with this exact class, so I didn't feel like it was necessary. So with this orange, I am going to be adding a little bit of brown just to make it a little bit more earthy toned and not so bright. Just it's got a little touch of brown in there. And after every time I do a color, for the most part, I'm going to be rinsing out my brush. What's nice about watercolors is that all the paint that is in here I can reuse because the water that I put in here just reactivates it, and no paint goes to waste, which is a really cool thing. So I'm gonna put some brown in here, maybe a tad bit of green, and some brown, some maybe even a little bit of orange. So this color right here is brown, green, and orange. It's almost like a really warm brown, and that will help with our shadows or our dark parts. I'm gonna play with some green over here since this one already has green in it. First thing I'm doing is reactivating all that paint that's in there. I don't want anything to go to waste. And I'm going to get, it's almost like a hunter a hunter green. But then again, I'm also going to add a little bit of brown to it. Just becomes a little bit more earthy. And there aren't really any right or wrong colors in this. Like I said, all of these pumpkins are all different shapes and sizes, and I feel like there's really no wrong way to do it. Yeah, so the first thing we're going to do is going over like the tools and skills you need to create the pumpkins, and then you can choose from there what colors, what shapes, how many, all of that jazz. I'm going to do one more color, and it's going to be the white color. Now, if you'll notice, even though it's white, it still has color in it. There's a tad bit of blue and a tad bit of like brown and black a little bit. So I'm going to use this one. It's got a little bit of blue in it. Just turned a little bit of green. I'm going to put a little bit of brown in here. And I'm going to change this one into, I put a little bit too much brown in it, so I'm just going to change it to my stem color. Because you do have to have a stem color, which is like for the most part brown. Alright, so we're just kind of playing with color a little bit. And for the white color, if there's too much yellow in it or brown, go ahead and add just the tiniest bit of purple, and that will cut out the yellow. It's like when you have yellow bleached hair, and it's like bleached hair and it's a little bit yellow, you put in a purple hue to kind of whiten it out. It's the same thing. Same thing, because you're putting in the color that's opposite on the color wheel. All right, so let's go ahead, and now that we have a good amount of our colors, we're just gonna play around with our shape, with our sizes. I'm gonna give you the tools to create your own shapes and sizes. The first thing we're gonna do is get some clean water, and I'm just going to go over the basic shape of what you're going to do for a pumpkin. And I'm just going to use the good old orange. So you're going to start, I'm going to start from this side and work my way. The first thing you're going to do is make that first section. You're going to do like essentially a bunch of almonds. That kind of, at least the first one is an almond. And what I want you to focus on is not trying to get it perfect, not trying to make it like all perfectly filled in. And whenever you go to the next section, you're going to leave a little white line. And I want you to try to picture picture this little stem here. Now it's not painted in, but I want you to picture it there without actually painting it. Now, depending on what angle you can put in the back ones that you're going to see a little bit less on the side. Okay, and you can start adding each individual one. And essentially you're just going to add your C's. Like all of these are just little C's that you're adding. After the first almond, you're creating C's, and you're going to make sure that you still have that. And then as it dries, if you want it to be more full, then you can fill all of that in. But if, let's say, you wanted one that's a little bit more sketchy, you can do it all in very small little like strokes, and just add every little bit in a little stroke. That way there's all these little bits of texture. Like maybe you can do the outside borders and then add the different parts of it. I'm just kind of picturing what it would be like if there was a stem right there. And these can be all different shapes and sizes. So let's say I wanted something that was a little bit shorter and fatter. I would do the same thing, just all my strokes are going to be a little bit further, a little bit more round. And if it helps you to visualize, if it helps you to put in the stems first, you can also do that. If you have a hard time visualizing like where things are going to be, you can do something like this, where you can go, okay, I want this stem really long, and I'm going to put it here. And then I want a smaller one here, and then another one here. So now you have all your stems in place, and then you just kind of get to fill in the gaps, right? Maybe this one's like curly or something. I don't know, we're playing, we're having fun, right? All right, so let's say I have that, and we're just going to, I'm going to make them different colors this time. So I'm going to grab some green. I'm going to make this one like a one of those really tiny, small ones. First, I'm going to start with a little ball. And we're just talking about shape right now. We're not even talking about color really, okay? So you're going to add a little ball, and then you're going to slowly start adding parts around it. Okay. I'm trying to do this in a way that you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so there's that pumpkin. Now that you have that pumpkin, you kind of know where you're going to put the other pumpkins. I'm going to do a different colored one now. And this one's going to be a little bit longer because it's a little bit taller. Okay, just adding in little bits. Okay, we're just practicing shape. And I'm going to put one more on this side. Now that we have those, if I were to put one in behind it, I know exactly where it's going. So I'm gonna play with a white one. So I'm going to grab a little bit of black. I'm gonna add a tiny bit of blue to it. I had a warm black, so I added a little bit of blue to it. So now I can just add this big, first I'm going to do the main almond. I'm kind of just avoiding the other ones. Here's the main almond that we're doing, and then now we just get to do C's around it. So we're just practicing getting these shapes in. We're not really worried about shadowing or color or anything like that. Just practicing the shape of getting these pumpkins. Hopefully you're getting a little bit more familiar. All right. So hopefully with that kind of practice, you can get into just a rhythm with how just easy these are. You're just making shapes. You're putting them together. The fun comes in when we get to start adding some elements. So I'm gonna go over a orange pumpkin and how I might add some shadow or some dimension on the different colors. So let's say I'm gonna start off with I think I liked starting off with the stem first. It gave me a little bit more direction. And if it did you too, then you can go ahead and start with that. Let's say I wanted to add a little bit more dimension in my pumpkin. Let's say I added, I'll do the same shape as my main pumpkin. And now with this, if I wanted to add some darkness, I can just grab some more like paint and put it at the bottom, and that will create a natural darkness kind of shadowing to the bottom. If you want to add any other darkness, you'll have to wait until it dries. So while that's drying, we can go ahead and go into our other paint. And I'm just going to add the little almond or football, whatever you want to call it. And right away, I'm going to go in and add a little bit of a darker color. Let's say I want my light color or my light color to be over on the left side. So I'm going to put that shadow over on the right. You can also wipe off your brush and take a little bit of the paint off of it. So you can rinse out your brush, wipe it off so it's dry as much as you can, and take off a little bit of that. And then you'll do that for each one. If my let's see, if my pumpkin has a shadow on the right side, it means the ones on the right side might be a little bit darker than the ones on the left. And you can see I'm just kind of dabbing that color. And again, if you feel like you've put too much color on there, rinse out your brush, dry it off, and take some of the paint off. That is something that is really, really helpful in watercolor. In order to put highlights back in, you just got to bring back the whiteness of the page that's already there. It's there, it's just underneath your paint. So you have to be careful. Now if let's say we're on the right side, or we're on the left side now of this pumpkin, it might be a little bit lighter. So I might stick to more of my brighter colors. And maybe only of my darker colors down below, where it might be a little bit shadowed maybe. always blend together certain colors. And then if it looks like it's kind of just like something's floating or something's missing, try to add some color in the background where maybe some other parts of the pumpkin that maybe you can't see are like behind it. And then if you want to add more detail, you can do this by using the certain colors, either more of the lighter color or you can use the darker color. And I'm just kind of almost coloring, very, very short brush strokes, adding in places that I feel like are a little bit darker. You can also fill in the middle pieces if you feel like it's too light or maybe you don't want the white. You could theoretically cover it up with some dark. Let's see what that would look like. Because why not? We're playing here. And that's how you could theoretically make it look more dimensional. If you wanted the more simple route, then something like these are definitely the way to go. But essentially, the longer you spend on one of your pumpkins, probably the more realistic it will look. So for instance, this one looks a lot more realistic in its shadowing than does this one. But it just kind of depends on the style that you want to go. For instance, now I can go back into my my stem color, and now that I know where my highlights and lowlights fall, I can add some shadow to the top part of it. Maybe even go into some black and add it at the bottom, very, very bottom. All right, so that's kind of the two different styles. That's how you would add more. You would add more detail. Let's say if I wanted to keep this style and I wanted to add more details, you would wait for it to dry, and then you'd come up from the bottom and do the same thing. You can get some water and then just blend it in. You can put water on it first, wet it down, and then add your darkness and let the water take the darkness up. Now there's a slight darkness to it. Alright, so let's say I added that. I'm going to rinse out my brush and just move the little bit of, and just kind of blend it in a little bit. So now there's like a really pretty gradient almost. Now you can do this while it's wet, just like we did over here, and you would just put that darker color on the bottom before it dries. So there's a lot of different ways that you could add shadow and add detail. Just depends if you want it in that kind of sketchy way or if you want it a little bit more realistic. You can do either. All right, let's go over a couple other things that you'll need to know for the main one. Let's say that this is my main pumpkin. Depending on the different colors you want to use for this, let's see, I'm gonna make kind of like a reddish brown, and you can really do whatever you want with this. A couple of the different floral stuff in here are like the leaves. So you're gonna just do a line, and then you can use your brush. You can do two things. You can pull in from the outside, or you can start with the inside and go outwards. So you can pull in like this, and that kind of makes them a certain shape. I'm placing my brush down, and then I'm pulling up and pulling in. So it kind of creates a rounded tip. You see that? Kind of creates a rounded tip. If you started off going straight with a little bit, and then you placed it down, it would create more of a pointed tip. You can also do it really quick, and it makes it very like loose and a little bit random, and yeah, it's really just kind of your preference. The other one is going outward, which depending on the brush you have kind of makes it look like they're little tiny leaves. It's all kind of whatever you want. The other type of leaf that's in here is more of a pumpkin leaf, like a kind of a traditional little leaf that's got a bunch of points to it. I painted these very, very loose. So essentially the leaf shape has 3 points to it. And this is essentially the shape of the leaf. That's essentially the shape of the leaf. So I just very loosely whenever it came down to it and I wanted to add a leaf, I just kind of had that shape in mind and added it in different places. I found it easiest to do like the outer ones first, like the V part of it, and then filled in the middle. And how I'm doing it, when I'm doing this loose, oops, my apologies. When I'm doing it loose, I am really trying to use just the tip of my brush. So when I'm doing this and using just the tip of my brush, I'm being really almost like scribbly. And I'm just kind of letting the brush do whatever it wants to do. And I'm just kind of going with the flow. Like that. And it always comes out really, really nice. The only other thing that you might need to or want to practice before you get it on the page is a swirl. If you've never done swirls before, they look easy, but they can be more difficult than meets the eye. So I was a face painter. I still am a face painter, but when I was first starting face painting, I was actually at the San Diego Zoo, and we did swirls all the time. And I didn't realize how hard they are until you started doing them. So it's very easy to push too hard or not enough. Essentially, what you'll want to do is practice your thin, thick, thin. In terms of your brush, how hard you're pushing. When you just touch, you can get a very thin line when you just barely touch your page. If you push down harder, you will get a thick line. So when I refer to thin, thick, thin, I'm referring to the pressure that you are putting on your canvas with your brush. So it's a little pressure, a lot of pressure, a little pressure. So if you want to practice, you can practice keeping a smooth line and going back and forth between a thin and a thick line. And that's essentially what you're going to be doing. Because with any sort of swirl, even if it's not super thick, having a really thin line, while that is really great, some look better if you have a little bit more variance to the line. And that only comes with doing that thin, thick, thin. And at least using the idea of it. So it doesn't have to be that thick, but that's like a really exaggerated way of doing it. Just so you guys can get an idea. So when you're doing these, you can add that thin thickness to it and create a little bit more diversity with it. Now the one that I did for the example, I did fairly quick, and they aren't as pretty as they could be. But that's the idea, is just making sure that there's a little bit of variance between it all. Okay. So now that we have that, we have a little bit of practice under our belt. Let's go ahead and paint. And you can do a bunch of these. Like, don't feel like, you're painting this and it's like, oh, I messed up. You paint another one. Like this illustration probably took me less than 10 minutes. Like it took us 30 minutes probably to do this whole page. Because the first, or maybe 30, 40 minutes maybe. And we painted, in that 40 minutes, at least I painted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pumpkins. One is fairly detailed, plus a bunch of other stuff. And that's teaching, which means I'm going slower. So if you mess up or you don't like it, paint another one. Take a look at what you painted, figure out what you don't like about it and what you can improve on, or the things you do like about it, implement those in the next one, and keep working at it. So what we're going to do is I have to pre-mix a little bit more of these colors. Remix, I should say. But I highly recommend to pre-mix your colors so that you don't have to think about the colors when you're going in. Those colors are already thought out for you. They're already tested against your other colors. You already know that they work well with each other. Alright, so I'm going to start with this orange one because that's the one that I originally did. Okay, and I'm just going to start here in the middle. I'm going to start a little bit lower than I did before because when I started this before, I put it a little bit too high and then I didn't have a whole lot of room to go up. So I'm going to move it down a little bit because I want more room to kind of, have my little floral stuff go up. So I'm just going to add this, and whenever I take off my brush from the canvas, I want to put it at the bottom because when you have your brush, wherever you leave it off, you're going to leave a little pile of pigment. And for me, I definitely want that to be at the bottom. But I'm going to use a little bit of the two ones that we did, where one's a little bit more detailed and the other one's not. I'm going to kind of combine them a little bit. I like the style of the first ones that we did, but I do want a tad bit more detail. You'll notice I brought all that pigment. I have all this pigment. And even if I go back up, I'm going to bring it back down and put it at the bottom. Maybe I'll bring it up just a little bit. But for the most part, I'm putting it at the bottom. I'm going to wipe my brush off. Put a little bit of a highlight up here at the top. Maybe not as much as the other one because maybe it's not in the direct sunlight. For the first portion of paint that I'm putting on here, I'm mostly focusing on shape. And then after I get the initial shape, then I'm focused on color and shadow. right. Then we get to do the other side, which maybe is a little bit brighter. Maybe I'm not going to add as much dark. I'm going to rinse out my brush, wipe it off, and go through and take out that part. I'm going to go in, get some pigment, and put it in the top and the bottom parts. Alright, now I'm going to take some of my other colors, like this kind of reddish brown color I'm going to create. And for this red little like leaf, it can really be whatever color or whatever shape you want if you decide to put it in. You don't even have to put it in if you don't want to. And if you want the leaves to be a little bit more like sketchy, then go ahead and just draw them in instead of doing them like one stroke. I'm a huge fan of the sketchy look. I really like loose florals. So this is my jam. I'm all about this. I also I think one of the things I love about watercolors is that I feel so free. I feel so free doing it. Like, it doesn't have to be any sort of specific way. I just get to paint and have fun. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and do the stem. Alright, so I'm going to use that same brown to give some more leaves, and I'm just going to be really loose with these. And I love just dipping in color and having it naturally fill the areas that I already created. It's a fun thing. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and create our greenery. So our foliage that's green. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing as the pumpkin. And go up. Put in some leaves. Remember, when you're doing these leaves, try not to think too much. Just do it. again, if you don't like it, you can add a different one later. You can do another one. And just to kind of fill in the space, I'm just adding some maybe some grass that it's sitting in, or I'm gonna go back in with my kind of brownish reddish and add in just a little bit of detail to this one over here down below. Little tiny. And if you need to use a smaller brush, go for it. You don't have to use the big one for everything. I'm gonna go ahead and take the same orange that I used before and just add a little bit of detail. Just a little bit of sketchy, kind of just like an extra layer. And this is totally optional. You don't have to do this. But I tend to, I don't know, I feel like layers are really helpful in paintings like these. And it's at this point that you can choose to either keep or get rid of the white lines. You can go over them with a soft color. And so they're still there, but maybe they're not as white. And you can add a little bit of detail to your stem. And you can add any other detail that you want to the leaves or the other parts of it. You can add more layerings if you wanted to. But there you go. That is pretty much it. That is pretty much the full extent of our class. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to paint this as many times as you want. You can do all the different colors. Again, you have access to all of these pictures on my Facebook. I will go ahead and post that now. So if you are on my Facebook, or if you're not on my Facebook, that is probably where I post like 95% of everything. And then I also have a Facebook community where you can post your painting of any classes that I teach, which is a really fun community to be in. So if you are wanting to join more classes, feel free to join that. I would really love to see your painting and all of the elements that we painted tonight. It's really fun for not only me, but for other people to also see that and kind of get to join in because they know you took the class too. So yeah, let me know. I love seeing other people's paintings, and thank you so much for joining me. We will see you next week. Oh, I forgot to go over some of the things that we're going that we're doing this month. So last week, if you are an acrylic painter too, I have most of my channel is acrylic paintings. We painted this pumpkin last week. So if that looks like something that you would want to paint and you like pumpkins, obviously you're here. Feel free to go and paint that. That one is a free class on YouTube. It's on my page. That was last week. So if you are painting this live with me, you can just go to my page. It should be one of the first videos that you see. And you can paint that for free with me. And if you joined for this month, you will have access to that that traceable. Actually, if you join anytime, you'll have access to that traceable. But just letting you know that if you did join or you want to join for this class, you'll also have access to that traceable too. And then over on Patreon, we have our $10 class. So if you join the $10 tier, you'll also get access to everything below it, which includes the traceables for the live classes. So that's only $5 more. And this month we painted, or last month we painted this. It's our abstract rhino, and this is actually the fourth one that we did. So we did a elephant, a lion, a giraffe, and now a rhino. I think next time we're going to be doing a bear, but that was to complete the kind of almost like African animals, endangered species animals. So that one was a lot of fun. And then over on Patreon, if you've been following along with my classes, you'll know that we are painting a castle right now, and this is how we're doing. If you're over on my Facebook, you would have already seen this, but we did a whole lot yesterday. We got down pretty much the first coat of our castle, as well as kind of the dark coating on the bottom. So we finished the sky, we have the background done, and we have our first coat on our castle, and I'm really excited to continue that next week. But I will stop talking your ear off. Go ahead, paint it. Paint more pumpkins. Have fun. Make cards. Make Thanksgiving cards if you like doing that. What I love about having the sketchbook is that if you tear this off, or I usually cut it so that it's not perfect, so that it doesn't have little bumps on it. I'll just cut it on the line. And then if you cut it in half, that is a perfect size. It's a 5.5 by 4.5 by 4.25, I think. Yeah, it's 5.5 by 4.25, and it's a perfect size to just glue on to one of those like pre-done cards. And it's like, it's chef's kiss. It's so good. It's so easy. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this class. I'm excited to see all your paintings, and we will see you next week. Okay, next week is an acrylic class, but if you want to join me, we'll see you then. Okay, bye guys.